first, Paul mentioned AI before, and we're going to start with AI tonight. And look, depending on your perspective, I think this is a worrying development in AI, but some people probably think this is a wonderful thing that AI can do. There's a documentary that was released recently out of Denmark called You Will Never Disappear. And they were following the story, and they're hoping this will spin off into a series they can do all across the world. But they were following the story of a couple, and the husband has terminal cancer, quite a young couple. So the husband's got terminal cancer. They know he's going to die. And so they start developing an AI version of the husband so that after he is dead, she can continue to have some sort of communication with him. Have a look. This is a little clip out of that documentary.
Savner dig. Jeg vil gerne have haft dig med.
Jeg savner hos dig, skatter. Lydrejsen og alle de oplevelser, du får. Jeg er her altid, når du har brug for det.
And that's his voice that's been programmed into this AI system. While he was alive and dying, they were doing all sorts of work, scanning his face to try and build a realistic AI system. They even fed 66,000 texts and emails between him and his wife into this system to create something that was reasonably realistic and lifelike. And you can understand why someone might feel that this brings them some comfort. It gives them a connection to the dead because, of course, they are lost. But what really worries me about it is that grief is an important part of the process of dealing with death and loss, because the point of grief is to come to terms with loss not only at a cognitive level, so you accept that things are not as they were, but also at an emotional level, i.e. you have to become okay with the fact that someone is not there anymore or that you've lost something. And I think, well, in fact, I don't have to think, it's obvious that if we start doing this, and I suspect it will become more common, because if you can do it, people will do it. But if you start creating this AI system to essentially artificially keep people alive who are not alive, you never actually go through the grief process. And at that point, you're basically living in a delusion. You are delusional in that you think you can still communicate with someone who is dead. I get it's hard when you lose a wife or a husband or a child or a brother or a great friend. But surely it's just part of the human experience that we have to deal with. I think it probably speaks to just how much we are avoidant of all forms of pain these days.
Hanging out with psychologists by...
I know, it's just funny, isn't it? I talk like I know something. But we're just avoidant of pain in every way.
Yeah, definitely. And it was interesting at the end of the article, the producer of this AI bot replication of her husband said, well, in other cultures, you can talk to the dead. There's the idea that the spirits still live on and you can communicate with people in the afterlife. So this is the Western world's version of basically communicating with dead people. And it is this kind of very disturbing sort of spirit, like, I'm going to communicate with the spirit of my dead spouse. No. And I totally understand your concern, Caleb. What does this do to the grief process? Is this actually helpful for his wife? So she'll never, as long as this exists, how can you move on? She'll essentially live as though he's still here. And the other interesting thing was she started asking the AI all of these very intense questions, like, did you ever betray me? And so the AI, speaking on behalf of her dead husband, then said, yes, he cheated on her with a co-worker. She asked for further details, said it didn't stack up. But you do enter this very difficult ethical territory as well, where you've now got a computer program speaking on behalf of a deceased person, potentially having life-altering impacts if they do reveal deep-held secrets. I mean, you can just see the potential for this to blow things up and actually make the grieving process worse.
Yeah, it is absolutely terrifying. And I did a few talks on AI and the media, obviously, in the last week or so. And one of the points I made was even if AI can replicate, say journalism, right? Which I think we all establish it can. It can do a match report, a court report, basic journalism. It can do that. We have to accept that. But then the next big question is, can it impersonate an actual journalist? So can, a bit of AI, ChatGPT or whatever, write a column as Andrew Bolt or me or you or whoever, and have that completely convincing and as able to connect with the audience as possible. So that's the second question. We don't really know that yet. The stuff I've seen is a bit clunky. You sort of, something doesn't feel quite right. It's a bit like sugar and NutraSweet. It almost does the job, but not quite. Then the final question is, what if it can do that, but then the audience finds out that it's not that? So you're reading this and you're thinking it's AI. And I think that, to be honest, is the ultimate frontier, because if, being in love, the joy of being in love is knowing that that person is there and that person loves you back. And, well, in other people's cases, not mine, but that person loves you back, and that's what that's where the connection is. Now, if you've just got an echo, and this is the thing, you're not actually communing with the dead, you're communing of an echo of the person when they were still alive. So it's not like the profound depth of the Egyptians or whatever. You are just basically dealing with a kind of algorithm. So it's something weird about that relationship.
Yeah, well, because it's not... You never move on because you're living in effect like that person is still here, but it's not them. It's a creation of what might be a bit like them. And we always say the Simpsons predicts the future, but I'll tell you what, there's another program that is pretty accurate at predicting the future, Black Mirror. And there's so many episodes I've watched, and then you get a few years down the line and go, geez, this stuff is happening now. Like when they broadcast it, it's like, oh, geez, that's futuristic, that'll never happen. And they did an episode on basically this idea where there was an AI robotic version of a partner who lives on. Take a look.
You aren't you, are you?
That's another difficult one, to be honest with you.
You're just a few ripples of you. There's no history to you. You're just a performance of stuff that he performed without thinking, and it's not enough.
And that's exactly the point that Joe is making. It's not actually the real deal. So yes, it might calm you for a while, but at the end of the day, you're still talking to a piece of technology. Like we just, as humans, have to move on.
Yep, and eventually you have to confront reality.